Welcome and thank you for joining our presentation on how the largest Jamba finds hourly workers in 2021, brought to you by Workstream and Clarion Food and Beverage Events. Before we get started with our discussion, we'd like to share some housekeeping items to keep in mind. All audience members are on listen-only mode, which means you are muted. We will be monitoring audience engagement on the dashboard and do encourage you to use the question panel to ask our speakers questions throughout the presentation. There'll be time for Q&A at the end of the presentation as well. Please note that this webinar is being recorded and will be available online in the coming week. In today's webinar, you'll hear from Aaron Delgadillo, Head of Customer Success with Workstream, and Jovana Maciel, Senior District Manager with Vitaligent. Now, without further delay, let me introduce our moderator, Aaron.
Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. I'm super excited to be here. Thank you, Amy and Clarion Events, for allowing us to chat today. So my full name is Aaron Delgadillo. I've been with Workstream for a little over 2.5 years. And in those 2.5 years, the Workstream customer success team has helped well over 6,000 hiring managers meet their hiring goals. Even during these difficult times of COVID in the past, 6 months, we've helped restaurants, hospitality, healthcare, just to name a few. Today, I'm super honored and excited to share the floor today with Jovana Maciel, who is the Senior District Manager for Vitaligent, the absolute largest Jamba operator in the US. But on top of that, I do want to do a special thank you to Jovana. Her stores in Northern California right now are experiencing well over 100-degree weather. So it goes without saying, Jamba's smoothies and bowls are in hot demand right now. Now, for the presentation, I don't want to spend too much time with the section about the background as well as the current situation. I want to spend the majority of the time chatting with Jovana. So my section will only take no more than 5 to 7 minutes before we jump in and hear from Jovana. Before we jump in, I do want to, for those of you who don't know Workstream is an automated hiring platform that leverages the power of text messaging. Text messaging was baked into Workstream since day one. And we've helped many QSRs throughout the United States, including Chick-fil-A, Jimmy John's, Ruth Chris, as well as many local restaurants all throughout United States, Canada, and even Singapore. Why has it been so challenging to hire? At the end of the day, what we have noticed and what we have investigated, this is simply a supply and demand problem. Starting with the supply side, we've seen an absolute nosedive when it comes to the supply of workers here in the United States. One of the greatest macroeconomic factors that has been driving this labor crisis, as all of you may know, are the unemployment benefits that are being provided due to COVID-19. And looking at the chart over here is, you can notice that the unemployment claims have jumped up dramatically and looking at this from a 12-year perspective. Yes, in the past few weeks, we were seeing things shift a little bit. However, with this Delta variant that is now coming about, here at Workstream, we are pretty much will be moving forward with the same realization of this will continue to be more or less the same for the next additional months until, of course, the Delta variant, calms down. Now, switching over to the demand side of things, we are seeing a lot of jobs posted currently to many platforms, including to Indeed. Never before have we seen such a competitive hiring market, and more or less everyone's fighting for their jobs. There's a lot of job openings right now without the workers to fill them up. Now, these past 2 slides, I know I'm preaching to the choir. All of you know this. However, there's one big change that has occurred in these past 8 months, and that is, who are your competitors? If you are a Taco Bell, your competitors could be the local taco shop. Here in Sacramento, it could be Jim Boys. In Texas, it could be Fuzzy's Tacos. And of course, we have to take into consideration all of the other QSRs in the world: Jimmy John's, Papa John's, Firehouse, Chick-fil-A. There's been one fundamental change. The other competitor that has, came out of all this are the DoorDashes of the world, the Grubhubs, the Postmates. Not only are they fighting for the same applicants, but also they're spending a lot of money to do so. They're spending money on the different job boards. They are providing really big incentives to get drivers back into their platform. So when you start hearing that, you're posting to these job boards and you're not getting applicants, just know it's a combination of both the individual demand side, but also the DoorDash, the Grubhubs, the Postmates, the Uber Eats of the world. They're also paying a lot of money to be on that top page of Indeed. On top of all this, it's also really expensive and time consuming. So during this time, the average time to hire someone is roughly 38 days. On top of that, with sourcing, screening, onboarding, training, the numbers come up to be about $4.6 thousand to be able to get someone in the door and someone trained and someone on the floor to start working. And that is a big number, especially if people are leaving shortly after they're hired. As promised, I wanted to spend the majority of the time opening the floor up for Jovana. So what we'll be doing is I'll be asking Jovana questions, and her and I will go back and forth, and just want to chat a little bit more. And I think the first question, Jovana, that I have for you is, during these difficult times, during these times where there's more jobs than there are people, Jovana, how are you finding applicants in Northern California for Jamba?
I would say we're definitely seeing some challenges, as is everybody in this industry. But the biggest thing for us is really leveraging all areas of opportunity when it comes to different types of job boards. And so we utilize, we look for things like the text to apply. Jamba is a fantastic first job for teenagers. We try to be as flexible as we can with work schedules. And in order to get the applicants that we need, we've got to be able to definitely compete with those that are grabbing their attention. Most of their attentions are on their phone. So text to apply is the big one for us. We've used hiring fairs in the past. Obviously, with social distancing and things like that, hiring in person is difficult. But we utilize, Workstream has been amazing for us because it was the first option for us to utilize the text to apply. And so that was big. The other thing for us is ensuring that we have open communication with these applicants. So finding them is very much the text to apply. A lot of our workers become, they go from guest to worker. And so that's always fun because they walk in the atmosphere, they have a lot of fun. But definitely being able to post to multiple job boards has been our biggest area of success currently. And just really about putting yourself out there and trying to make yourself an employer that people really want to join.
Two questions that come from this. Can you talk a little bit more of how important it is to follow up with your applicants in a very timely manner? I've heard from other organizations that if you don't follow up with an applicant in as little as 30 minutes, they actually might be on to the next one. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that we look at, even in our interviewing process, is we ask them about how many jobs have you applied for this week? And that really helps to give us a better insight as to where their time is being spent. Are they looking for a job or are they looking for this job? And that really helps those that are interviewing identify, like, I need to call this person right away. And so that's one of the biggest things. Unfortunately, right now, with the amount of people that are calling in sick and things like that, it's really hard for recruiters to be able to keep all of their appointments. And so it's a matter of, if that person just wows you on the spot, why are we hesitating? Don't hesitate, because you think I can call, it's a little inconvenient for me because it's past this time and I can reach them tomorrow. Most applicants will take that text message, that phone call, that email immediately, because if it's not you, it's going to be somewhere else. I don't think that there's anybody right now that can drive down the street without seeing at least 10 now hiring signs. And so if it's not apparent in the physical world, it's competitive. You've got to be that person. Instant gratification is big, especially for our pool. And so if they interview, they're at home checking their email every 10 minutes. So if you're going to wait 24, 48 hours, there's a very good chance that you've just lost that applicant.
Do you and your recruiters do something different if they've applied to many jobs and had a lot of interviews versus someone who is just applying for Jamba?
I would say we're not very, we're not very picky with that per se. If somebody is for our culture, I'm not offended that they've applied for multiple jobs. For me, it shows that there's a willingness, right? Because whether you're applying for one job or many jobs, and it's as simple of a drop down, upload my resume, let me refill this out. If they are doing that 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times, for me, I just see it as a competitive advantage, because you're probably going to want to work for us more than you'll want to work for somebody else. So it's really a matter of, if they're going through that process, they're taking the initiative, and that's definitely the type of employee that you want.
Definitely. I think one of the questions that I'm always interested is interviews. Are you holding, virtual digital interviews, or are you inviting people into the doors?
So I would say for the entry level jobs, we have done phone interviews for some. It really depends by county, because the restrictions are still really hit and miss, and we are in a few different counties and states. So our franchise is in Washington, California. So for us, it's a matter of, I know for management, a lot of us are doing Zoom interviews. So that way, because for us, it's very much the personality. So we want the opportunity to see you without a mask. We really want to be able to feel your personality in that interview, and we don't want it to be as restrictive as it's going to feel sometimes, in comparison to prior years.
Awesome. And I'm going to just check the chat really quick to see if there's any questions that came in for you. And to put on my Amy hat, if you do have any questions, feel free to post it in the chat or into the Q&A session, whichever is appropriate. Great, and I do see one question that came in, and the question from the audience is, what are the top job boards to use? Jovana, if it's okay, I'll take the first stab at this. Here at Workstream, I noted we've definitely noticed, Indeed, of course, is the number one. However, coming in at number 2, very interestingly enough, it's Facebook jobs. So we noticed that Facebook jobs is starting to come up a little bit more. Yes, Indeed is still, of course, the Google for job searches. However, Facebook jobs are now coming up above all this. Of course, with all things, to kind of put on my Jovana hat, you have to do a lot of other different sourcing methods, including the posters, referrals, etc. Let me see if there's any other questions. All right, we'll go on to our next question. And Jovana, I know there's a lack of applicants right now, but I kind of want to pick your brain a little bit more of, how do you filter applicants of who you want to interview, as well as filtering those applicants after you've interviewed?
I would say one of the biggest things for us is looking at the availability is one. When are they available? Again, we do offer a lot of flexibility, but looking at those who, depending on the need for the store, is really how we try to look at these. So Do they have the right availability? What is their current job experience? If they have any QSR experience, that's definitely a biggie and a plus. But the biggest thing for us is really utilizing our Workstream platform. We are moving them through these stages, which is helping filter a lot of the needs, because every city and every store has a different need. Every general manager has a different need. And so the biggest thing is giving them a variety of options and working through a scheduler, knowing when the person that's going to be doing the recruiting or the interview process, being able to have that as an option so that the candidate can also see, is this the right job for me? So it's really preparing the interviewee and the interviewer to the proper time schedule. So the other thing as well is, just because one applicant doesn't work out for one particular location, we don't necessarily filter out that applicant. What we do is we try to share as much as we can, especially if geographically it makes the most sense, right? If there's a couple mile radius, hey, I got this fantastic applicant. Unfortunately, their availability doesn't work for me, but it may work for you. And so we definitely try to share as often as we can amongst one another to get exactly what we need. And we found a lot of success in doing that.
Okay. Now, one question that I was dying to ask you in that previous slide is, you mentioned that, of course, every county, every state has different restrictions. Can you tell me a little bit more about how Vitaligent communicates these changes over to you, or is this something, some research that you do on your own?
For the restrictions, it's really county based. So whoever overseeing that particular county, we touch base with our human resources. We make sure that we're staying on top of those things. And then we communicate that out to our teams. So that's really the biggest one. Myself as the district manager, a lot of that comes from me, and making sure that I'm communicating appropriately through those restrictions.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. So Jovana, we've had a few questions that have come into the chat, and I wanted to pose one over to you. And an individual in the audience wanted to ask, what social medias do you use to find applicants, or if you use social media at all as well?
We've used Instagram in the past. We've used Instagram and Facebook. We do have that, especially for our franchise, and we utilize those platforms as often as we can, but they're mostly pointing to the other ways of how we are applying. So we have a hiring fair, and we'll announce that via social media. We remind people of our QR codes, and so that's big also. Next time you're in our store, check out our QR code, text to apply that way as well. So we utilize social media for that, but mostly social media is definitely utilized for marketing, just the overall, promotions and things like that we have.
Great. Thank you so much. So there's a few more questions that are coming in, which I'm really excited. One question that I'll ask you, and then I can also step in here, is what are some trends that you're seeing in sourcing for applicants?
Some of the biggest trends that we're noticing right now in sourcing applicants is as you put up a posting, right, whether it be to one job boards, many job boards, every single day, so is every other employer. So refreshing those pages so that when somebody is searching particularly for a job, you're constantly at the top of that list, right? So doing one posting, 3 weeks go by, you haven't really gotten as many hits. If you don't go back and republish that posting, you're going to have a much harder time finding applicants. At that point, as they're searching those job boards, you're on page 5, 6, 7, 8, 20, if you wait a little too long. So staying really on top of those applicants as they come through, that's the hardest thing. Otherwise, you will see other competitors, their job postings are coming up above yours.
Yep. And Jovana, if you don't mind, I'd love to touch on that as well. Here at Workstream side, sourcing is, definitely top of mind. Here at Workstream, we have definitely two different sourcing methods: passive and active sourcing. Of course, what Jovana explained is, posting to the individual job boards. That's fantastic, and it's a great first step. You also heard Jovana of using the text to apply posters, and those, of course, if you have someone who is a patron there, they can scan and quickly apply before they get to the front and have their smoothie. on top of this, we've noticed a lot of great success with referrals. So your current employees are also an amazing source for amazing applicants. So using a referral tool as well as possibly an incentive as well, it definitely goes a long way. And also, as Jovana said, using those social media to engage individuals where they want to be engaged as well. So a thank you to those audience members who are asking some great questions over to Jovana and I. We definitely do appreciate it. Jovana, I do want to ask another question that came up and someone in the audience was curious if you guys had a drug policy that you guys abide to.
We do not. I think for certain levels, and I can't speak for Jamba Corporate specifically, but mostly our franchise, we do not currently.
Okay. Thank you so much for sharing. All right, I'm going through the questions. All right, so I'm gonna go to the next slide, and there's some questions that came up, and I'm gonna weave them into the mix as well. And in the previous slide, Jovana, we chatted about how expensive it is to find, train those new hires, and of course, with all things, we want to make sure that we retain them. And we were curious in your front, you worked with a lot of individuals who this is their first job. How do you retain your employees, Jovana?
One of the biggest things that we really try to focus on is the culture that we offer, not only from the brand, but specifically from our franchise as well. Really leaning into our values is big for us. A lot of our values resonate specifically with the candidates that are applying. And so it's very much what we're going to give you is not just a job, but an experience. And we dig heavily into our culture for that. We do look for people who are coachable, do they have the will, the desire, the flexibility? But in order to retain our employees, it's much more about what are we doing for them than just the service they're providing us and to our guests. And so, really getting down to the granular of who are you as a person and what do I need to know about the next 6 months, the next year? What do you have planned? While we love that first job experience, whether it be in high school or junior college or just trying to figure life out right now through the last 20 months, it's very much a what's important to you. Because if it's important to you, we can make it important to us. And that's really hard to teach. And I think the biggest thing for us as a company is identifying their personal why and helping them understand that this isn't just a job, but here you're not only going to learn hard skills, you will have those human skills or those soft skills, those transferable skills, figuring out how to make sure that they understand life balance. Do they understand, what disciplinary action looks like? Do they understand time management? Do they understand what it means to serve other people? And I think I would have to really give a lot of credit to our current managers that are just right there on those front lines every single day, because what they're doing on a daily basis is telling their team, hey, I'm right here with you. And I want to make sure that you get the most out of this place, but this job as well. So the culture is definitely one of the primary reasons of what we try to identify in keeping our people. When it comes to retaining them, it's, is the work environment right? With supply chain issues, it can make things really difficult just to do business. And so ensuring that we're finding ways to recognize people, whether it's employee of the month or, this person was fantastic this week, let's find a reason to shout them out, or it's going to be 105 this weekend, we're buying the entire team pizza. Like whatever it is that's going to engage those teams, giving them a reason to come back every single day is big. And then really living and breathing a servant leadership. We're not a top-down company. We've always been a bottom-up company. And so every opinion, every suggestion matters, and giving them an opportunity to feel like, hey, if you've got an idea, let's try it. Let's try it for 2 weeks. You want to move something around, you want to try something, you have a promotion in mind that you think is going to drive people in, let's give it a shot. And so it's really just being open to listening to those employees and making them feel valued, because that's where you're going to get the retention. It may not be the money, it may not be the incentive or the referral. It's, do I want to get up and come here every single day? what is my day going to be like, and do I like the people that I work with? And that's really what a lot of people are looking for right now. They want to take pride in where they work.
Jovana, so much to unpack with that amazing response. Definitely got more than I bargained for, but there was two questions that came in that
Yeah.
really coincide with what you said. So one of the questions that came in is, and you kind of touched on this already, is how important is it screening for culture during the interview process?
Yeah. So for us, when we're screening for culture, we're really looking for some of the values. So what is it that's important to them in their personal life,
Okay.
right? What are some of the things, I typically in an interview, you can get about a good 15 to 20 minutes an interview, sometimes 30 minutes. And for us, it's very much understanding their background, because a lot of the characteristics that we need come from how they were raised or where they're from or their experience that they've had. What is it that they're trying to accomplish? And so when we can have those genuine, authentic conversations, we can pull a lot of that out. And I think for us, it's very much do you know a culture like this exists in a workplace? Because most of them don't. If they've had previous experience where management was not as engaging and they were just a name on a schedule, it's very hard. It's very hard for them to have a better understanding of that. And so they just give you the best answer they can in that moment. And it's like, okay, so this isn't a hot seat. This is a conversation. Let's have a conversation. And I think that's probably where we get the best screening for culture, is really just setting the tone at the beginning of this interview. This is not meant, this is a conversation. I want you to be authentic. I want you to be genuine. I'm sure you're going to have fantastic answers, but I want you to take a deep breath before you answer every question that I ask. And it's really just taking that time with the individual, so they're not give you that generic, this is the answer you're looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you've answered this already, but someone in the audience was really curious about, with so much competition that's out there for getting an applicants in the door, how do you get them to say yes to your job?
I think the biggest thing is understanding that going into this type of relationship is very much just that. It's a two-way street. So that's the biggest thing for us. In order to get them to say yes, I mean, they're there, they're looking, they're already putting in the work to be there. So it's not a matter of necessarily, my general manager is trying to talk somebody into a position. They've already shown up for the interview. And right now, that's about 3/4 of the battle. So if we can get them to arrive and show up and have a genuine conversation, that's really the goal. And again, it's mostly a conversation surrounding them as an individual. Why do you like Jamba? Why specifically here? What is it that you want to accomplish, and how can we make that happen? So when they find out that we're there for them as much as they're there for us in a job opportunity, we really talk about the growth potential that we have created amongst our franchise. And so it's very much if we get a lot of business students, kids who start their own business, they want to be entrepreneurs one day. So we explain, here's a type of business acumen that we can offer you on a daily basis. There are opportunities for you to learn more. Any questions are 100% acceptable, and we go from there. And so when they realize, like, oh my God, I'm a business student and I could learn business while I'm working. And when you can mesh what their needs are to what it is you're trying to accomplish, it's much easier to get them on board.
So if it goes without saying, and Jovana, correct me if I'm wrong, once you get the applicants into the door, you have an interview regarding their needs and their wants, and if you continuously engage with them in a very fast and sincere manner, you have a great shot of winning them. Is that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Right. So another great question came up, and this is regarding kind of the hiring process that you have at your location. So in the question it says, you mentioned that you have several different locations. Who handles the hiring process within the organization? Is it the local store manager, or is it a kind of franchise function?
It is the general manager. So the general manager, with the assistance of their district manager, will also come in and help and support that. But every general manager has a login to our work stream. And so for us, that's one of the easiest things. They do all of their own interviews. anybody that's looking to join in at a general manager or assistant general manager, we do have additional interviewers, which would be the senior leadership of our franchise.
Awesome. Thank you for answering that, Jovana, and sharing a little bit of the secret sauce from Vitaligent. As always, continue to keep the questions going. I do have one more question that I definitely want to ask Jovana. And, Jovana, you're throughout this entire chat, you've talked a lot about both the hard and soft skills to be able to, really run, Vitaligent and Jamba in a really effective manner. But, in your experience in 2021, what are other technologies that you've used that were crucial in order for you to do the job?
I will tell you that when we did start joining in with third party, we jumped on board with delivery in 2020. And so getting that full integration from tablets to getting orders to come directly through our printers to our teams, whether it be DoorDash, Uber Eats, all kinds of those options, we definitely had to upgrade some things in the technology department for that to happen. We also made an investment in Linebuster tablets. So to be able, we do have a couple of drive-throughs. So that's very helpful. We also have mall locations as well as traditional street side locations as well. And so having those Linebuster tablets was big, especially in the counties that had to close their front doors, where they, you couldn't have any guests in the store, depending on the county that you were in. So moving that POS system all the way to the front door, or utilizing tablets to help get orders in quicker. We've also invested in Wi-Fi extenders for curbside options. Again, just depending on the restrictions per county, per area, definitely made it very hard. And then one of the biggest things that we did was also as a retention tool, we enabled credit card tipping for our entry-level employees. So that was big.
Very, very awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Jovana.
Of course.
Question that came up. Do you offer any signing bonuses for your new hires?
Correct.
Yep. So we have another question that came up. We've been challenged to get enough people to apply, let alone looking to screen for culture. How can we make this part of the process? Jovana, I can kind of take a stab at this too.
Yeah.
Actually using Vitaligent as a really great example as well. So I believe Peter. So I think what I've noticed in the past is interjecting the culture and screening for culture as part of the hiring process is something super big. My number one example that I always give to all of my customers is actually Vitaligent. One of Vitaligent's stages inside of their hiring process is a video. It's an amazing video showing off their culture. It shows off their culture, what their philanthropy is, and one simple question: what is it about our culture that you like? And you get such a rich response when it comes to what the applicants say. Not only are you able to see how they formulate their answers, you're able to see exactly what they answered, how they communicated that across. And I know working with other Vitaligents in Washington with Renee, I know that's one of his favorite questions that he always likes to ask. So interjecting that, that's one way that you can melt both the screening for culture as well as finding more applicants. Now, not everyone may have an amazing video that you can share, but even just sharing your value statement from an organization standpoint and asking the applicants, what is it about our value statement, our culture that you absolutely loved? Now, part of the undertone with the question also that was asked is It's also really hard to find. So going back to maybe a previous question, it has to definitely be multiple ways, so both passive and active sourcing. So
Mhm.
posting to the different job boards, it definitely goes a long way. Sourcing directly inside of Facebook, Instagram also does go a long way. One of the things that we've always recommended is depending on who your ideal applicant is, you might just simply post to the local high schools Facebook group. You might join different groups on Facebook, LinkedIn, etc., to be able to promote your jobs. On top of that, like as I mentioned, using a referral program, as well as blanketing your jobs to high traffic areas. I know the concept of a high traffic area seems rather foreign right now, since we're in the thick of COVID and the Delta variant, but there still are certain high traffic areas. Those include community centers, those include places of worship. Um, Anytime you can share your hiring posters in those areas, it definitely goes a long way to be able to have a well-rounded kind of funnel when it comes to applicants. Now, I don't want to dominate. Anything else to add to that, Jovana? Or?
No, Aaron, you did absolutely fantastic.
Oh, thank you so much. Job posting. So another question that came up is how are other ways that you're incorporating culture into the job posting? I can take a stab at that as well, Jovana, and if you'd like to add, outside of, yes, sharing your cultural values and or like a video that Vitaligent does in a second or a third stage, even putting in the job description as well.
Yeah.
We value X, Y, and Z. And of course, with all things job posting, I need to say, always bullets are the most important thing. Always put in bullets, because a lot of cases, this is the computer that people are using in order to apply for the job. Anything else to share, Jovana, about how you can share the culture even before an interview?
No, I would absolutely agree right then and there. Adding bullet points, our values are, there's one word and it's a bullet point. And so we just take it down that way. And it's something, it's easy, it's digestible. And remember that depending on the type of applicants you're looking for, the attention span might be less than 30 seconds. So if it's too long of a read, if the job posting is too long, they're going to go, nope, and they're just going to keep on moving. So because to Aaron's point, they really do utilize their cell phones for that application process. And so if it's not something that's easy, quick, if they've got to scroll 3 pages, they're probably just going to pass.
And to reiterate what you said, Jovana, as well, it really is that instant gratification. Like if you apply to the job and you receive a text message or an email or even a phone call really quick, you got their attention. The next step is to move them down the funnel to be able to get them in the door or phone interview. All right, let's see if there's any more questions that came up. I think we definitely have covered all of them. So I just have one more slide to share, but I think I'll still open it up to the end to leave the floor open for anyone to ask any questions for Jovana and I. Just a small, again, for those of you who wanted to learn a little bit more about Workstream, Workstream has helped many organizations, including Vitaligent, to cut their sourcing screening of applicants in half. Here in today's call, we've heard from Jovana as well that we're able to post to the job boards very easily. So we posted 15 free job boards very quickly, as well as we heard that Vitaligent uses those text to apply codes as well. Screening becomes a little bit different when you're able to reach out to the applicants very quickly, as well as add automated messages that go out to the applicants. And scheduling is typically like herding cats. Anytime you can take a process that usually takes 30 minutes and have them select their own time to come in, it definitely goes a long way so that Jovana can spend the time where it really matters and that's really helping the GMs really focus on what's really important for those applicants to get them in the door and create that awesome work environment. Workstream is backed by some amazing people, including the former CIO of Jamba, CEO of Zoom, as well as Jay-Z, to name a few. So if you have any questions about Workstream, definitely visit us at workstream.us. But as I mentioned before, I definitely wanted to keep this open and continue this conversation going because they're being respectful of the time as well. We do have a stop at the top of the hour, but I still want to see if there's any more questions that are coming in. So a question that came up, Jovana, for you is, are there any other ways that you have engaged with high school and college students other than technology to make them think you are the one? Oh, excuse me, let me read that again. So I guess the way that I'm reading the question is outside of technology. Are there any other ways that you're using? Are there any other tools or any other processes that you're using to reach out to high school and college students?
Our biggest primary resource is our current employees. So, you know, those that are in high school, in college, but we do have some general managers also that are in school that are also, you know, trying to continue to grow their own post-secondary education and their skill sets. So for them, it's very much, you know, taking a quick drive down to the local college, putting something in the student center while, you know, especially considering, depending on where you're at, a lot of people are expected to go back to in-person learning this fall semester, which is getting ready to go underway here pretty quick. And so that's big. You know, Vitaligent, especially in a lot of our locations and in our trade areas, we do a lot of fundraising. So sports teams, nonprofits, a lot of places, they get to know us those avenues. And so when you are engaging with parents, or, you know, you have sporting events or nonprofits that you work with, those will also help you get the word out. And so sometimes it'll just get you the foot traffic in the door. And then once it's in the door, it's a matter of whoever is, you know, working or actively there, whether it's a general manager, entry-level employee, can they shortly and sweetly articulate how to get them connected to finding a job? So that's a big one for us. Another one is having your general manager or whoever it is, you know, having easy access to contact that person. So sometimes it's a business card that is out there for us in the lobby, the general manager's business card. That way, if an applicant is having a hard time making a conversation or the business is very busy, they grab that card and they try to reach out to that general manager because maybe on the door they saw a sign or they heard from a family friend that we were hiring. So they utilize those avenues as well.
And tell me a little bit more about what you just said about the sports organization. Are you referring to like the fundraisers that like Jamba facilitates?
Right. So we do fundraising cards for sporting events, especially out here in the Central Valley. Soccer is huge. Softball, baseball are huge. Traveling soccer. So we actually get a lot of Bay Area competitions out here. We usually have some of the bigger spaces since we don't have a lot of big buildings in Central California. We have really big soccer fields and baseball fields, and you know, a lot of investment there. So a lot of places actually travel here. And if we get the opportunity, a lot of our general managers do a really good job of staying really tuned into their current trade area. What's going on? Are there tournaments? Is this a downtown business? Typically, a lot of those places will provide you with upcoming events or an events calendar. Utilize that appropriately. And if you are a recruiter going, taking the business card, sometimes it's taking free samples to saying, hey, I just want to let you guys know we're at Jamba, we're down the street. If you guys are looking for hiring or you guys are looking for any sort of fundraising for yourselves, please don't hesitate to come on in. So we try to really expand using not only our employees, but some of our current and local contacts as well.
Got it. So it is also like kind of like you said, going to those local junior colleges, those high traffic areas, as well as, you know, being active in the community. That has really helped out a lot to reach out to not only potential applicants in a non-technology way. All right. One question that has been burning in a few people's mind is, with this new Delta variant, are you asking your employees to be vaccinated? How are you kind of treading those waters?
I think the biggest thing for us is we really pride ourselves on diversity and inclusion. We do respect the personal beliefs of all employees, regardless of what that may be. So for us, do we encourage it? Absolutely. Do we require it at this time? No, we do not. And that's really big for us. We don't want to alienate one side or the other. Our primary focus is providing all resources for safety while on the job. We still require masks for all of our employees. And that's big because we want all personnel to feel safe when they're on that job. A lot of these kids, because it's a first-time job, they live at home with older parents or grandparents or family members. And so safety is a #1 concern, especially of those, I would say right now, between the ages of 18 and 24. That's really where a big push of where our listening comes in. What is important to you? What is the #1 priority? And for some of these kids who have now become, monetary contributors in their household incomes, safety is a true concern. And so for us, we respect everybody's rights to choose whatever they choose, but we do absolutely encourage.
Jovana, on behalf of everyone, I wanted to thank you for all of the amazing information that you shared with us today. And I just wanted to wrap it up and to say thank you also for Claire on Events, as well as a special thank you for everyone who attended today, as well as provided these amazing questions to keep Jovana and I on our toes. I'll pass it back over to Claire on Events to close it up. But thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Aaron.
And thank both of you for really a fantastic conversation and a presentation. We're at the end of our time, as Aaron just said. So thank you, Jovana and Aaron, our audience and our audience for this presentation. As a reminder, there will be a recording of this session made available in the coming days. And we thank you again for attending, and we hope everyone has a wonderful day.
Bye.
Adios. Ciao.